At the tranquil fringe of Prescott National Forest, where nature meets nurture, Sarah Bennett's life took an unforeseen twist when she brought home Rex, a rescued bobcat unfit for release, into the wild. As an experienced wildlife rehabilitation specialist, Sarah was adept at balancing the care of wild creatures with respect for their untamed spirit. Her young daughter, Sophie, shares their home not only with Sarah but also with Rex, a bobcat whose primal instincts simmer beneath his serene facade. Yet, on one pivotal afternoon, when Sarah stepped away for just 60 seconds, everything transformed. An odd sound from the backyard, a frantic cry. Rushing back, Sarah's heart raced as she found the yard altered. What unfolded in that brief moment would challenge all she understood about wild creatures, maternal bonds, and the profound depths of unexpected devotion. This is a story of lines crossed, trust built, and a sacrifice that reshaped the meaning of family. Before we begin, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and tap the notification bell to catch all new stories. The late afternoon sun cast elongated shadows across the yard of the modest ranch house nestled at the edge of Prescott National Forest in northern Arizona. Sarah Bennett stood at the kitchen sink, scrubbing dirt from under her nails after tending her vegetable garden. Through the window, she watched her 1-year-old daughter, Sophie, sitting contentedly on a blanket in their fenced backyard, babbling as she explored a colorful plastic toy. Nearby, lounging in a patch of dappled sunlight, was Rex, their most remarkable household member. The young male bobcat's tawny, spotted coat gleamed, his tufted ears occasionally twitching at sounds only he could hear. His presence in their home was born of circumstances Sarah could hardly have imagined 6 months earlier. Sarah hadn't planned to adopt a wild animal. Her career as a wildlife rehabilitation specialist focused on healing injured creatures and returning them to their natural habitats. That's how she met Rex, a severely malnourished and injured bobcat kitten brought to the Southwest Wildlife Conservation Center, where she volunteered 3 days a week. Found caught in an illegal snare, his right front paw was mangled and infected. Veterinarians initially doubted his survival, but Rex proved tenacious. After multiple surgeries, he pulled through, though his paw's permanent damage meant he could never hunt in the wild. Deemed unreleasable, Rex faced lifelong captivity. During his recovery, Sarah formed a unique bond with the young bobcat. Unlike most wild animals, which remain wary of humans despite extended contact, Rex showed a rare temperament. Cautious yet unafraid, watchful but not aggressive. When budget cuts forced the center to rehome educational animals, Sarah pursued a special wildlife rehabilitation permit to give Rex a permanent home. The process was rigorous, requiring home inspections, detailed documentation of her expertise with wild felines, and a secure outdoor enclosure. 3 months ago, Rex joined her household. The transition had challenges, but he adapted with surprising ease. What surprised Sarah most was Rex's gentle curiosity towards Sophie. Initially, the bobcat kept his distance from the toddler, but over weeks, he grew more comfortable, sometimes observing her play from a few feet away. Sarah never left them unsupervised, of course. Despite his calm demeanor, Rex was a wild predator with instincts that couldn't be fully domesticated. Drying her hands with a dish towel, Sarah glanced at the peaceful backyard scene. She needed to grab laundry from the dryer in the nearby utility room, a task taking less than a minute. Sophie was engrossed, and Rex was dozing in the sun, his typical afternoon routine. "It'll be fine," she told herself. "Just 60 seconds," Sarah murmured, turning from the window. She hurried to the utility room, pulling warm clothes from the dryer and folding them into a basket. Her thoughts drifted to dinner and her mother's upcoming weekend visit. Everyday life had a way of normalizing even the most unusual circumstances, like sharing a home with a bobcat. A strange noise from the backyard broke her reverie, a low, guttural growl she recognized as Rex's warning call. Her heart quickened as she dropped the shirt she was folding and raced back to the kitchen. Through the window, Sophie was no longer on her blanket. Panic surged as Sarah burst through the back door, eyes frantically scanning the yard. What she saw stopped her breath. Rex was dragging Sophie by the back of her overalls across the yard toward the house. His movements were urgent yet careful, his powerful jaws gripping the fabric without touching Sophie's skin. The toddler wasn't crying. She seemed more surprised than scared, her small hands grasping at the grass as she was pulled along. "Rex!" Sarah screamed, rushing toward them. The bobcat released Sophie, swayed unsteadily, and turned to face something near the blanket where Sophie had been. Then Sarah saw it. A rattlesnake, coiled and ready to strike again, its distinctive rattle now audible. Rex collapsed, his breathing labored, a trickle of blood matting the fur on his front leg. In that moment, Sarah understood. The snake must have approached Sophie's play area, and Rex, sensing danger, had moved her to safety, getting bitten in the process. The realization sent a chill through her, followed by an adrenaline rush. She scooped up Sophie, now crying, and checked for injuries. Finding none, she placed her in a portable playpen on the covered porch, far from the snake. Grabbing a long-handled garden hoe leaning against the house, she approached the rattlesnake, still coiled defensively near Sophie's blanket. Having handled snakes before, living at the forest's edge made such encounters common. She used the hoe to guide the snake into a plastic storage bin kept for this purpose, securing the lid with trembling hands. She'd relocate it later. For now, Rex needed urgent care. The bobcat lay where he'd fallen, his golden eyes glazed with pain, his breathing rapid and shallow. The bite on his front leg was swelling, marked by 2 distinct puncture wounds. Sarah knew venomous snake bites were time-critical, even for a robust animal like Rex. The wildlife clinic, led by Dr. Carter, was 40 minutes away. She grabbed her phone and dialed as she ran to the garage for a pet carrier. "Sarah," Dr. Carter answered. "What's up?" "Rex was bitten by a rattlesnake," she said, voice tight. "He was protecting Sophie. I'm bringing him now." "I'll prepare the anti-venom," Dr. Carter replied. "Keep him calm. Movement spreads the venom faster." Ending the call, Sarah returned with the carrier. At nearly 30 pounds, Rex was hard to move, especially injured. She spread a blanket beside him, gently rolling him onto it as a stretcher to slide him into the carrier. Rex didn't resist, a worrying sign. In the 6 months she'd known him, he'd always retained a wild animal's caution, even during severe illness. Now, he watched her with pain-dulled eyes. After securing Rex, Sarah retrieved Sophie from the playpen and strapped her into her car seat in the SUV. The carrier went on the passenger seat, where Sarah could monitor Rex. "Hang on, Rex," she whispered, backing out of the driveway. "Just hang on." The drive was a blur of worry. Her attention split between the road, the rearview mirror where Sophie chewed a teething toy, and the carrier, where Rex's breathing grew labored. Her relationship with Rex had always been complex. She respected his wild nature, never seeing him as a pet, yet their bond transcended typical human-animal boundaries. She'd nursed him back from near death, and now, astonishingly, he'd risked himself for Sophie. "Why did you do that? You silly cat," she murmured, tears stinging. "That's not how this works." The wildlife clinic appeared, a low building off the road. Dr. Carter waited with a gurney. "He's deteriorating," Sarah said, opening the passenger door. "The bite's on his right front leg, with significant swelling." Dr. Carter nodded, helping transfer the carrier. Let's get him inside. Rattlesnake venom is hemotoxic, affecting blood and tissues. We have ample antivenom. Sarah followed, carrying Sophie, who was unusually quiet, as if sensing the gravity. In the exam room, Dr. Carter and his assistant worked swiftly, administering fluids and injecting antivenom near the bite. The next 12 hours are critical, Dr. Carter said, adjusting and drip. We'll monitor for anaphylaxis or reactions to the antivenom. I'd like to keep him overnight at least. Sarah nodded, bouncing Sophie on her hip. Whatever he needs. Dr. Carter glanced at Sophie, then Sarah, thoughtfully. You said he was bitten protecting your daughter? Sarah recounted the scene, Rex dragging Sophie from the snake, collapsing after the bite. Remarkable, Dr. Carter said. Protective behavior toward humans, especially children, is rare in wild species like bobcats, even habituated ones. He checked Rex's vitals. Animals surprise us with their complexity, don't they? Sarah gazed at Rex's unconscious form, recalling his urgent movements to save Sophie. They certainly do. After ensuring Rex was stable, Sarah prepared to leave, needing to get Sophie home for dinner and bedtime. Dr. Carter promised updates. The house felt empty without Rex. As Sarah went through the evening routine, feeding Sophie, bathing her, reading a bedtime story, her thoughts stayed with the bobcat fighting for his life. She checked her phone constantly. Dr. Carter called after 9 p.m. He's responding well to the antivenom. Vitals are stable, and swelling hasn't increased in 2 hours. I'm cautiously optimistic. Sarah exhaled. That's wonderful. He's not out of the woods, Dr. Carter cautioned. But if he keeps improving, you might bring him home tomorrow afternoon. After the call, Sarah stood on the back porch, staring into the dark yard. The empty patch where Rex usually lounged underscored his absence. How quickly the wild bobcat had become integral, not just an exotic presence, but a guardian who proved his devotion beyond expectation. Sarah slept fitfully, waking to check on Sophie and for clinic updates. By morning, Rex was awake, swelling reduced, and his kidney function improved, signaling the venom wasn't causing lasting harm. By early afternoon, Dr. Carter called. Rex was ready to come home. Sarah arranged for her neighbor, Mrs. Caldwell, to watch Sophie while she drove to the clinic. Dr. Carter met her in the exam room, where Rex lay in a kennel, tired but alert. His bandaged right front leg had an IV catheter. He's made a remarkable recovery, Dr. Carter said, checking the bandage. I've removed the IV since he's drinking well. The tissue damage will heal over the next week, and I've prescribed oral antibiotics. He handed Sarah a bottle of pills, twice daily with food. Sarah chuckled. Easier said than done with a bobcat. Dr. Carter smiled. I trust your skills. You've tackled tougher challenges. They transferred Rex to Sarah's carrier. He was subdued but watchful, his natural wariness returning with his strength. On the drive home, Sarah spoke to Rex, a rare break from her professional boundaries. You've upended my understanding of wild animal behavior, she said, glancing at the carrier. What you did for Sophie doesn't fit any wildlife textbook. Rex shifted his eyes on her. She didn't expect him to understand, but his intelligent gaze always set him apart. At home, Mrs. Caldwell greeted them with Sophie. Initially wary of Rex, she'd grown to accept him. How's our hero? She asked, peering at the carrier. On the mend, Sarah replied, setting it down. Thanks for watching, Sophie. My pleasure, Mrs. Caldwell said, handing Sophie over. That's an extraordinary animal. Not many would risk themselves for a human child. After Mrs. Caldwell left, Sarah opened the carrier, stepping back to give Rex space. He lingered inside, assessing, then emerged cautiously, favoring his injured leg. Sophie, in Sarah's arms, squealed and pointed. Rex! Rex! It was the first time she'd said his name clearly, and Sarah felt a wave of emotion. That's right, sweetie. Rex is home. She set Sophie in her playpen, and the toddler stood, babbling excitedly. Rex approached slowly, sniffing, then settled a few feet away, eyes on Sophie. Sarah watched their silent exchange, marveling at their improbable bond. No scientific explanation accounted for Rex's sacrifice. Wild animals act on instinct, not complex emotions like humans or dogs. Yet his actions were undeniable. Perhaps animal consciousness held depths beyond human grasp, connections defying conventional logic. The following days brought a new routine. Rex rested indoors, initially avoiding weight on his leg. Sarah hid antibiotics and chicken, which he accepted unsuspectingly. A week later, on the back porch, Sarah watched Sophie splash in a kiddie pool while Rex lounged nearby, his bandage gone, revealing healing skin. Her mother, Eleanor, arrived from Phoenix, carrying a shopping bag and wearing a familiar look of unease. She'd never fully approved of Rex, seeing him as a risk despite Sarah's expertise. "Hello, dear," Eleanor called, eyeing Rex warily. "How's everyone?" Sarah hugged her. "We're well. Rex is recovering from a snake bite." Eleanor's brows rose. Snake bite. Over iced tea, Sarah recounted the incident. Rex's intervention, the bite, his recovery. Eleanor listened, astonished. "So he dragged Sophie from the snake and got bitten protecting her?" she asked, glancing at Rex. "Yes," Sarah said. "Dr. Carter said it's highly unusual for a wild animal." Eleanor watched Sophie splash, Rex occasionally tracking her. "I was wrong about him," she admitted. "I thought keeping a predator near Sophie was reckless, but I never imagined he'd protect her." Sarah smiled, knowing her mother's shift was significant. "He's unique, Mom. I've never met an animal like him." That evening, as the sunset painted the sky in vivid oranges and purples, Sarah and Eleanor sat on the porch. Rex took his usual spot at the yard's edge, his silhouette sharp against the dusk. "My grandfather told stories about ranchers who believed bobcats were special," Eleanor said. "They thought bobcats saw things humans couldn't, sensed dangers early." Sarah smiled. "Folklore. Maybe," Eleanor said, nodding at Rex. "But folklore comes from observation. Maybe there's truth to those tales." Rex turned, his eyes catching the last light. In the months that followed, Rex fully recovered, a lighter patch of fur the only sign of the bite. Sarah added snake barriers and stayed vigilant during Sophie's outdoor play. Rex's heroism spread through the wildlife community, with Dr. Carter documenting it for a journal. University researchers wanted to study Rex, but Sarah limited their access, prioritizing his well-being. On warm evenings, she watched Sophie toddle in the yard, Rex nearby, a watchful presence. He never sought affection like a pet, yet his presence was a comfort, a wild spirit who chose to be part of their family. "You know, I wonder what goes on in that wild mind," Sarah told him one evening as Sophie played nearby. Rex blinked slowly, his expression enigmatic yet profound. There would always be a gap between human and wild consciousness, but in his eyes, Sarah glimpsed something deeper. She'd never fully understand why he saved Sophie, instinct or something more. What mattered was the act. A wild creature protected a human child, forming a bond beyond explanation. As the sun set, painting the sky indigo, Rex moved closer to Sophie's blanket. She smiled at him, unafraid, offering a block. "Rex," she said. He didn't take it, but watched with intensity reserved for her. In that moment, Sarah saw a rare harmony, a connection most spend lifetimes seeking. Her work had always been about returning animals to the wild, but Rex showed her nature could forge unexpected bridges. He belonged not in the forest, but here, part of a family defying definition, yet profoundly real. As darkness fell, Sarah carried Sophie inside, Rex following at a distance. Different species, different worlds, bound by a sacrifice that transformed their lives. Stars emerged, watching over a mother, a child, and a wild guardian who crossed the divide to save a life he cherished.